My name is Levi Kodes. We're here to discuss matters to do with the Supreme Court question, and to join me in that discussion is BENJI NDOLO. He is a communications guru, a political strategist, and a very well-known social media
activist.
What do I call it? Activists.
Yeah.
BENJI, welcome.
Thank you very much. We're on, eh?
Yeah, we are on.
Yeah, asante sana. Wow, so much going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say nowadays you can read much into people's ties. Should we read anything into yours?
I'm surprised you're very observant. Yeah, my orange tie is because I am not a hater of ODM. So I wanted it to be seen as we discuss, and I'm surprised you're very observant. I wanted it to be known and seen that I'm not a hater of ODM or of Mzee Raila or anybody. And I'm just looking at the papers here just as we begin.
Yeah.
The economy is really in a mess.
Yeah, let's feel free to go through them. You know, this is the week where a lot will be said at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I think starting from tomorrow is when I think we will actually be seeing the court sessions actually live in progress.
Yeah.
And people are waiting with bated breath because so much has been put out onto the media. Things even that usually would never have shown up until a court case is ongoing. You know, affidavits are on, and on record public. People are weighing in on what's happening.
And a lot of it is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
A lot of it is very unfortunate. You know, you and I began these conversations years back, and it's quite unfortunate, Levi, that so many years later, in such a vibrant, resilient country, you and I are still sitting here talking crisis, talking solutions, talking despondency, talking disillusionment. There are elections ongoing today.
Rongai, Kitui, Port South,
exactly.
River.
Yeah.
And of course,
Mombasa, Kakamega.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you just notice off the bat, polls open at 6 in the morning, but there's nobody coming.
Nobody's coming. I've been watching this morning.
There's no queues, there's no lines.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is Kenyans are just increasingly realizing that our governance system is a sham. Where I'm from in Machakos, I mean, the governor, the senator is practically illiterate. And this senator, what has continued is in some areas like Ukambani, though Kangundo, my place, when you called yesterday, that's where I was. It's an exception because they've really never voted Wiper.
The senator elects now, you want to say?
Yeah, the senator elect now. And so it's this game, it's a sham. People are getting tired. People are voting. A lot of the behavior you see, like what happened with Tuju yesterday, it's completely unacceptable. It's completely unbelievable. Who is Rafael Tuju? One of the mistakes about the Uhuru administration has been just a total lack of accountability. Uhuru has done some things well, investing in infrastructure, continuing from where his predecessor left. But the debt story, the cost of living story, the corruption story, and just to be seen to be a leader who just does whatever they want and gets away with it is a really terrible way to lead. So Rafael Tuju is a cabinet secretary who nobody knows what he does. That makes him an errand boy. Therefore, when you see him, you have to ask if he's barking.
Cabinet secretary without portfolio.
Yeah, but what is that? So when he's barking, then you have to ask who is his master. As I was watching this thing yesterday, and I've tried not to engage too deeply, a neighbor from mine in the village said, "Hey, Kenyans voted nicely, peacefully. There was no closed server. Portal was open." This is a villager, someone actually in the village. He said, "Sasa hizi ni gani? Like, what are these guys doing? What are they trying to spark? What are big people trying to spark?" I mean, Kenyans voted, there was collating, there was observers, there was agents, there was a process. sasa hizi ni gani? Because it's becoming increasingly clear, Bwana Kones, that it's like there's an ulterior hand trying to manipulate things. So whose hand is this? Is it the president? Is it who? You know. So
do you think that question will be cleared up by the Supreme Court? By the time they get to a ruling, do you think we will know?
I think we'll have a greater hint. I think that it's extremely suspicious just how, you know, before all these problems started, I actually had noticed, and as you said at the beginning of the show, I'm very good at commenting on social media. I had noticed the vice chair, I had noticed her. I had noticed her because she's very quiet, she's very calm, so she's always very subservient to her boss.
Oh.
I noticed her, yes. Before all this mess, if you look at footage just before, and if you look at from earlier in the year when they came, I noticed she's very calm, very level-headed, it seems. But now, for someone to appear out of character, that means there's a pressure coming from somewhere. There's a pressure coming from somewhere, and as one of the social media users opined, you can see when they're doing the parallel press conferences and what have you, one of her colleagues, the lady, I don't remember her name, she just looks like someone who's told, where? Twende. She doesn't seem sure of where she is, or what she's doing, or what they're talking about. So this again is the tragedy of coaching people or manipulating, because the process was very methodical from the beginning. It was smooth sailing. I think there was a predetermined outcome, an expected outcome, and I think the problem started, you know, I look at Honorable Raila as very popular. I mean, just if you look at the rallies and whatnot, and the role he's played in Kenya, and, you know, he's not a newcomer to the game. So I think there was an expectation now that given the support of, quote, the system, it will just be like automatic, that he'll be winning. But then again, as a seasoned analyst myself, I kept saying you cannot underestimate the DP. The DP has worked hard. The DP has really toiled for what he has today in terms of political support or whatever. And so I think at some point they were like, hiya, where are the numbers? And I think that's when the so-called interference began. So there's a lot of allegations being made, but I must give credit to Kenyans in general because they're reluctant to be manipulated and to be used. And I think this one was also really painful for Raila for two reasons. Number one, because Ruto is much younger. And number two, because Ruto used to be also his student. So this one was particularly painful. And to be honest, they're literally going crazy. At their level, at the level of the politicians, the MPs, etc., they're honestly at a loss as to what to do. And where the disaster comes levy also is because, I hate to say this, but, you know, William, as the president likes to call him, William is also a wrong number. He's not a guy you can bully. I can relate to that kind of personality type. He's not a guy you can kick around. You know, and that's why I always understand him kind of in a very personal way, you know. I don't believe, he's not Kalonzo. I don't believe, you can't kick me around, just steal my vote, etc., etc. And Honorable Farah Maalim explained that on a clip that went very viral. And so it's a bit of a tinderbox, but it need not be that way. I think that Chebukati is being vilified. It's Raila's ammo to destroy people and to destroy institutions. I mean, look at how angry and bitter he is. He really, really is. And so here we are again. The court will be hard-pressed, I think, to overturn such an election. Again, for two reasons. Number one, the 2017 Supreme Court under Maraga overturned an entire election nullified and ordered a repeat of the election. That was unprecedented in Kenya and in Africa.
It was only the third time it was happening in the world.
Exactly. It was only the third time in the world.
Fourth time can be Kenya again.
Exactly. It's not possible to then annul an election again in succession. It's not possible. I mean, there is donor community here, diplomatic community is here, all the big countries
Everyone
were
wonder
there.
what's wrong with us.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, and they have a lot of interest, and they have a lot of programs and projects that they also have funded here. So what the heck could be wrong? Because they also observed the election. So that's the first reason. The second reason, Levy, is the election was very transparent, open, credible, therefore, and from when voting began, there was a portal made available. The server was just opened for the whole world to see.
Yeah.
And so
Even the first 3 days of counting, there was no issue.
you also have, absolutely, you also have legislation that put in place what Raila had really wanted, I think done through Maina Kiai, that elections are final at the polling station, at the constituency level.
Yeah.
At which point, pictures and images are taken of the final form,
And relayed.
relayed to National Tallying Center, upon which then agents bring for cross-checking and validation the hard copy with what had been relayed.
Yes.
To have such a standard, even America doesn't have that standard. So that's where we are. It's only towards the end that we started hearing shenanigans. So I think that the election was very open and very credible.
Yeah. So, but
Because anyone can say anything. You see, if you want to tarnish something, if you want to kill a dog, first you give it a bad name. So anyone can make any allegation.
do you think social media? No, let me ask you this way, so that I don't look like I'm giving you a leading question. What do you think the contribution by social media was? Because for some time in those days, everybody was winning until somebody lost.
The perception is always that Raila is ahead. I mean, it's a
But
narrative now that
it
they're
was so
selling.
much, like social media was such a blitz.
No.
I don't think we have seen the, and I think social media gurus will tell us the amount, you're there, you tell me. This particular election, in terms of fake news, misinformation, disinformation,
Yeah. I've noticed that.
blatant lies.
So let me tell you this. This is such a good question. I cannot blame social media. You can't so much blame the medium. I can't blame social media. I think that it was modus operandi. It was strategy on the part of Azimio to incite their supporters by giving them false hope and by spreading disinformation so that you get them frenzied. It was a tactic. It didn't really work, but that's exactly what it was. It was a tactic.
Because people are giving figures, it's like every day. And then,
And it's wrong. I try not to do that.
yeah,
I try not to do that. You see, if you look at my handle, I'm very careful what I put out there. And I verify and look at a lot of sources before I put anything out there. Because it's the responsible thing to do. Freedom comes with responsibility. And also, remember, I was very much Levy, and I'm a very consistent, social activist. After the 2017 thing, do you remember David D running a campaign to split Kenya?
yes.
What was that?
They said, he called it what?
Cruel marriage.
Yes, it's a cruel
He
marriage.
called it a cruel marriage.
Yes. We should have a divorce.
Yeah, and I told
Yes.
him, Kenya stands before Jomo Kenyatta. Kenya stands after even President Ruto. Kenya stands. What kind of rubbish are you running? They get mad when you tell them the truth. And within a few months, he had jumped ship from the person he was cutting Kenya like a cake for to the DP. So now today, David D works for the deputy president. They've done a wonderful manifesto, by the way. And now they want to administrate and govern the country which they were trying to cut before. It's very important to not be flippant. It's very important to be consistent. It's very important to be patient.
Yeah.
It's very important to be realistic. This country is not all about Raila. I can understand how his fanatical followers feel, but you have to, as they keep saying, and here, Levi, I like to use someone's own words against them when you do debate. It's a really good and credible tactic because it's their own words that have said so. President Uhuru said, and I quote, and you can verify this, huyu mtu kila siku anasema ameibiwa kura. Ameibiwa kura, ameibiwa kura tena, ameibiwa kura tena. Hai, si hata wewe uibe. It's not the right lesson, but it was a point made in a moment of frustration. Because this country is not about me. This country is not about you. This country is not about Raila. This country is not about sijui which commander in the jeshi. This country is about millions of Kenyans who the chief hustler was able to speak to. We urge him that his speech not just be words. I put out a message last week, which was very factual. In my village, there's a kijana, aged 35, who just hanged himself on Thursday. And this is the reality across the country, across counties. The governors won't address it. The national government won't address it, but we'll address it. Youth are jobless, hungry, frustrated, and watching their lives fritter away right before their very own eyes. So I found out later now when I went down over the weekend that 2 bulls, small bulls that he used to use to pull an ox cart, were sold by his uncles. And so he just felt that that was the end of his life. A lot of youth feel that way. It's just, that is how cheap, Levi, we've made life. As we talk about systems, as we talk about, support of the system, as we talk about glamorous campaigns with lots of choppers and wastage and unaccounted for money from the office of the president, this is the reality on the ground where families are going to bed hungry and the leaders are not willing to talk about it or to do anything about it. Therefore, this country must not be held at ransom for any person, whoever that person is. Whoever that person is, even if it's my uncle or President Uhuru or anybody, it is really just a question of us implementing our constitution, obeying the constitution, respecting, upholding rule of law and institutions, and moving the country forward. Because the country cannot move forward if every day politicians think that this country is just a fat cow to be milked by a few families.
Yeah. Let me ask you, Benji, do you think we set ourselves up for this kind of conduct when it comes to elections and acceptance maybe of, like you say, a lot of people say, international observers say also the election was largely free and fair. In fact, not so many point out that it wasn't free and fair.
Of course.
Except for
none, actually. Not even
for what we are seeing at the Supreme Court, the allegations that we are seeing there. So the question then comes, are we in this particular place because of one of two things? Number one, this winner-take-all mentality that has put us in a corner where we are so afraid of somebody taking over because it then means we are isolated. If you listen to the words of the Deputy President-elect Rigathi Gachagua, he said, in speaking to, on his campaigns for these elections that are happening today, he said, give us somebody from, and you're speaking Rongai, he said, give us someone from UDA because, when we are at the table, as you guys will not be there. As we cut the cake, we want to cut the cake with one of our own. So make sure you send someone like that here so that we can cut this cake. Those kind of statements, are they the ones that make people feel like, loss is such a difficult thing to accept? That's one. And then the second thing is the art of rubbing it in each other's faces. We lose a football match and we're opposing two different teams. We talk about it, maybe you make some noise on Twitter today, you say, your team is rubbish, blah, blah,
then
blah.
you're done.
And then we're done. But when it comes to siasa, we do it for 5 years. We put you in the mud forever and tell you you're a loser, you will never win. Do you see those things? And by extension, when we tell for some, and I don't speak for them, but I think for some part of Raila's base, the art of you will never win is not just for him. It's also for him and his
tribe,
Yes.
because it's also so tribal.
It's also so tribal.
Yeah.
Do we then set ourselves up because of this kind of approaches?
It's such a good and complex question. Let me answer it this way. First of all, it's just about maturity. It's about reality and political maturity. In an election or in politics, you must have winners and losers. And I say this to debunk BBI. You must have winners and losers. Hillary Clinton won more votes than Donald Trump, though she lost the election. Because the election looks at electoral college rather than popular vote. Mm-hmm. So she won 4 million more votes, the former Secretary of State.
But not in the right places.
True.
Yeah.
When they breached the blue wall, etc., Pennsylvania, whatnot. So she didn't go for a handshake. She's not president today. You must have winners, you must have losers. Donald Trump, following that, lost to Sleepy Joe. He didn't have a handshake. He's now in Trump Tower doing his own things, or actually in Florida, Mar-a-Lago, his resort and whatnot. Levi, this is important to discuss because we have designed and defined our politics as, like I said, a cash cow to be milked by a few elite families. Why this point is very important is because I'm going to turn around the show and ask you a question. The deputy president, now president-elect, has been accused so much of being so corrupt. In fact, I remember very well one time I was so critical of him on this station to where it was disturbing to a lot of viewers. But again, not in a personal way, but on a very factual basis. He has been called the high priest of corruption. Now, William Ruto has really worked hard. It's not debatable how hard William has worked to get here. My question to you is, our politics requires so much money. I want you to help me understand as I explain these different facets of your question. Where could Ruto have gotten money? Because I don't know his father. His father was not a senator. His father was not a vice president. His father was not president. Where could Ruto have gotten the money to mount a presidential campaign? Because we must sometimes move from academic arguments to reality on the ground. If you're going to move by chopper, if you're going to make donations in churches, etc., etc., etc. I'm making this point, Levi, to say we have a problem of opportunity in this country, and that's a fact. It's why it's difficult to leave a job, because where are you going to get another job? It's where tribalism comes into play, because you stand a chance at a place if you come from a certain community rather than another one. It's why when there's political competition, people feel, it's our turn to eat. And we will eat better if we have our own kind at the table. So we need very serious transformation, not just of politics, but of the entire way how we've set up our economy. Because people are disempowered. It's very, very sad to note that President Uhuru leaves Kenyans poorer. Kenyans are poorer. The economy is in the doldrums. Look at the dollar today. It just hit the highest on Friday, 2 days ago. So we're on the wrong path. Everybody knows that. 75% of Kenyans will tell you the country is on the wrong path. And so when you're on the wrong path, it's a treacherous path. It's a path of looting. It's a path then that comes with, electing scoundrels and political mobilization along ethnic lines becomes the norm. Now, one of the things that UDA did very well, if you look at the Deputy President's messaging, he was the first to move away from community mobilization. So the Hustler Nation is not any two communities, is not tyranny of numbers. It is Mama Mboga, Mtu wa Chini, it's the wheelbarrow. And again, on principle, once you mobilize that and then you target to empower that, it's not only good for the economy, but it's good for people. So it's a win-win. The other thing I'd like to say is, one of these fine days, a leader will emerge, because now it looks like the presidency is the preserve of two communities. I raised that concern 10 years ago. But the way we are moving, I honestly feel that one of the days our president will be a Luo young man who will just emerge. Like Ruto, he'll be the son of nobody. He won't carry Raila's baggage, because there's also a lot of baggage. You are a history student. I read your book. I mean, you're a brilliant mind. There's a lot of baggage. This same Raila was in committee for many years. This same Raila was in committee after the 82 coup attempt.
True.
So it's just that, we are a conservative society, so what we do is we avoid talking about things we're not comfortable with. But I believe that there's a lot of baggage around some of these sensitive issues that have led us to where we are. I believe the president in the handshake just wanted space to govern. He wanted peace of mind. He got what he wanted. There is also an allegation that the president is trying to succeed himself through Raila, because he's the one funding the campaigns, he's the force behind him. That's also shameful. It's also unfortunate, because Raila is way older than him. Raila is older than the president, way older than.
I don't think it's about
Ruto.
the age.
No. I'm saying
It could be about the fact that it's not the other guy.
Yeah, but what I'm saying about age is, when you're a young man, you don't take a mzee to do for you errands. That's precisely what I mean. And here I'm talking about a mzee.
Yeah.
You don't take a great grandfather to be your errand boy, to be your kibaraka. So I mean, what are these people even doing? Then there's other things even being discussed that we can't discuss here. For example, one of the agendas was, even if Raila gets it, hatakaa sana kwa hiyo kiti. So that's the fire around which you are seeing Martha being seen in that context. Hii kitu itarudi centro tu haraka haraka. So that's all a really unfortunate agenda. And where William beats them is on several fronts. Number one, look at the organization that William deployed. Look at even how he's speaking to the issues now. Look at how he's running the UDA house. There was a lot of commotion about the running mate, because a lot of people wanted Honorable Kindiki Kithure.
Yeah, and he whipped them in.
He whipped them in. The media was camped there. You guys were camped there from 8 in the morning to midnight. I mean, this was hot stuff. And then ultimately they picked Rigathi.
It's party breaking stuff, actually.
Yes, exactly. And after they picked Rigathi, under all that contention, because Rigathi is wealthy, there's a track record of what he's done in the party, what he had promised the boss. After all of that, the first person to come out and say, we are in UDA and we're going to remain together and we know where we're going and we're in this together, the first person to send that message was Kindiki Kithure. Kithure Kindiki. That was his first tweet. And then followed by, he had a bit of frustration where he said, I'm going to take a break, but I'm in UDA and I'm with Ruto. I can assure you, if the situation was on the other side, there would have been fistfights. There would have... There's a time in 2007, Raila could not step at Orange House. It was literally on fire. So Ruto has a style. Now, some will say that is dictatorial, but it's, again, as I explained, it's one of those things where you have such a sense of purpose. You know where you're going. You know what you're trying to do. I'm sure you saw his comments the other day on the Inspector General, and you can just look at his eyes as he speaks.
Yeah.
Hey, my God. This is the most incompetent, I think, Inspector General in the whole world. His incompetence might not show on a day-to-day basis when things are okay. I can bet you, if you have a crisis and he needs to make a decision, that gentleman sitting there cannot make a decision. I know the Inspector General, not very personally. He is 100% incompetent. It's unbelievable. Completely. And so, give credit where it's due. We are a third world country, Levy. We need to get to a point where we stop doing nonsense.
We do.
Where politics is not about sloganeering and lies and manipulation and what have you, and certainly not about entitlement. It is now about, and that's what the DP kept saying, let us now make our politics about Mama Mboga. And I think, as I used to really admire Kibaki's mind. There are other issues, but I used to really admire Kibaki's mind. And Kibaki once said, you know, sometimes when people are opposing you, see kitu ingine, because he really used to know so well, very wise old man. Ni wivu tu. I've come to realize that in my own personal life. Sometimes you see people just opposing you, Levy, and just the avenue they're taking, and you ask yourself, what could it be? And I'm sure you've seen that in your own life.
True.
There's just nothing you can do that can satisfy some people.
And they even say things with such a heinous way of saying things until you're
actually, even in your book, you gave the example of, I think, a former girlfriend who even went to court and said, you know, in court they should attend, you know, session after session after session, and then it just had no basis, no evidence, and it was just thrown out casually, and then they just walk away like nothing happened. They just walk away casually because really in the first place there was nothing. And you know, when we were a bit younger, you know, you and I are more exposed, American educated, we've been out there. You just, you know, I'd ask myself, why would someone be so bitter? You know, someone would say something like, Benji sold my house, or he conned me my house. Really, a house? This is you guys' own building. Really, you can? How is that possible? And a house transaction goes through a valuer, goes through a surveyor, goes through a bank, goes through another bank, goes through a lawyer. Those are 5 checkpoints. But then you realize sometimes it's just jealousy, man.
And sometimes it's handed down without any facts. Let me ask you, coming back to
which is where the topic of inheriting enemies comes. Someone just says, you know, Levi's like this and I don't like him, so you shouldn't like him too.
And then just gathers moss for no reason.
Exactly.
Let me ask you, back to the Supreme Court question on this particular week. Supreme Court has got, today's Monday.
It's got a week.
By next Monday they should be done. They should be giving us a ruling.
So the ruling could be maybe Saturday?
I don't think it's going to be Saturday, given all these allegations.
So it'll probably be on Monday.
Likely be the very Monday. I mean, they've got so much to do in such little time.
They've got 2 lorry loads from the Azimio side. What is that?
No, I think that was mostly PR exercise.
But why do that? You know, that's... let me just... Why do
mostly for your supporters, so that they can see that you have a lot of evidence.
But you see...
That's what I thought, actually.
But you see, that's very...
You know,
one of the things about Mheshimiwa Raila, he believes so much in trickery. Uhuru too as well, but Raila believes more than anyone in trickery. And I hate to say this on air.
Call it smoke and mirrors.
It's why he's not close to Obama. You know, for me, I love this. It's why he's not close to Obama. Obama has no time. And when I learned that, it really told... You know, for Raila, it's this game. You know, there's a book I was reading by Joe Hamisi, where he's a former MP.
I've read that book.
He's got 2 books. Politics of Betrayal is one, then there's another one. And he's a moral guy who went into parliament and saw the game for what it is. And he was a friend of Honorable Kalonzo. And he says how Raila one day explained to them that politics is a wrestling match. You know, they had a contention on something, they were having a discussion. And Raila says, you wrestle, and if the other guy pins you down, it's not so much about how he pinned you down, etc., etc. It's just the fact that he pinned you down. So it doesn't matter. He's the winner. And this might explain why I think he couldn't believe Kibaki pinned him down. You see? That's why they took the country to the brink. Equally, he couldn't believe Uhuru pinned him down. You remember the days of NASA, of COD. I can use his own words against him. Jubilee, ni wauaji, ni waizi, they are overstealing, blah, 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 blah. Eurobond, the tunnel from Muranga with the water. Raila was doing that himself as opposition before handshake. That's why it was so bitter. Now it's Ruto, because he's not president-elect. Ruto is president-elect. And so it's this, old philosophy of politics as this cynical game that leads you to even bring cartons and cartons. So the Supreme Court has about 2 weeks.
They told him compress that. They compressed it into 140 pages. Which they could have done to begin with.
And actually that then leads, it lends credence to what I had initially said, which was, if I was going to petition the Supreme Court, so I would have done 10 files of very potent stuff. That's what I would have brought to court. 10 files, just 10. Five.
But politics, it's part of that razzmatazz. You see people at rallies, they say, we have a watertight case. You see other guys saying you have, just a balderdash case. And you have, and then everyone is psyching, the supporters. And I have a feeling we are doing a season 2 of what was happening 2 weeks ago on social media in terms of we are winning.
Exactly.
And everyone's saying, even look at KICC, we are about to receive.
Exactly.
Look at
it's actually shameful.
As the center. I mean, everyone is...
a friend of mine who works for Zimio. Can you imagine one of the days? So we talk. And then I said, okay, so what's happening? So he told me, President Uhuru, there's a phone call he'll make at 3 a.m. that will get Raila announced. So I'm just listening to him. I mean,
the others beliefs,
And this is an educated fellow, another one was an engineer. So I said, really, what are you basing that on, etc., etc. He told me, Benji, you know what, let's bet. Let's bet, we have to bet. Ngapi? Let's bet 300K. He's a big engineer. Really? So I woke up in the morning, the call hadn't come. That's not the day of the announcement. That's the day it was announced. So he says, there was another one. The deputy president has left his residence because Raila is a winner. He has to come after because he's more senior.
Yeah, there was that story.
No, there are many.
So many stories.
Now Uhuru has not spoken because there's something he's planning, so he can't speak, and he's not going to hand over. There's no role in the constitution for a head of state whose term has come to an end. Uhuru cannot be president forever. He doesn't want to be president forever. He shouldn't want to be president forever. So there's no role in the constitution. What is there in the constitution is that there's an assumption of office committee. Then there's exhausting the avenues of appeal, of contestation.
And then we do the swearing in.
And then you do the swearing in. That's so.
And power shifts.
Yes, completely. I mean, there's hakuna kitu hapo. And now, once it does, the other thing that I've been saying is, some of these things Azimio are doing are basically, because chances are very high it could shift to the president-elect. I mean, he was a heartbeat away, now he's one step away. You see, you have to talk reality. So it's instructive that Atwoli has slowed down, because he's not a fool. He shouldn't be a fool. I mean, this guy is practically there. So why provoke him? Why provoke him? He'll be the president tomorrow. And you know his personality type. Why provoke him? I'm all for reality, Levi. And there's something we call real politic.
I'm all for reality too.
There's something called real politic. We can talk and talk until the cows come home. One of the things that really bothers me is that people talk about integrity, people talk about leadership and integrity. But even the ones talking about that themselves don't have integrity. There's so much hypocrisy. You're calling Ruto a thief, but you're a thief yourself. It's just that maybe you steal less. This country really needs transformation. It needs transformation.
Do you think we'll get it?
We will.
Let's assume.
You can never give up. We will.
That all things remaining constant.
Look at how they printed Rigathi as a fool.
Yeah.
Rigathi is not a fool, my brother. Rigathi is the opposite of a fool.
Until he showed up, yeah.
Rigathi is not a fool, man. And he's not a newcomer in town. This is a guy who's been around. First time MP. This is a guy who is on TV doing debates. He's not an idiot. And he just went and creamed Martha. So that's a victory. And another victory. And You know, one of the mistakes, and I think I talked about this when I was here last, I really thought that Martha would turn out the women. It didn't work.
It did work, yeah.
Wow, that was the big thing from this election. That even in Gishugu, they queued to ensure she doesn't become deputy president. And she's also not a newcomer in town. She's not. She has a record. She has a personality that is a known quantity.
Okay, so let me give you the scenarios the Supreme Court might come up with. One is uphold the election. We've talked about that, you know, and what would happen going forward. What do you
Easiest.
think? Yeah?
Easiest
if they
option.
come up with upholding the election, because you only have about 15, 12 minutes. If they come up with upholding the election, you think that the UDA brigade will check off from the whole, you know, and let me call them Kenya Kwanza as a general, will check off from the politics of we have beaten you. Of course, they'll have their moments of gloating, maybe a month or two. Will they shake off from it quickly enough to get to work quick? His
Excellency Ruto gave, and by the way, full disclaimer, I think at this point, because I'm just speaking truth here, but a lot of allegations are being made. I do not work for the deputy president. I've never worked for the deputy president, and I'm not looking for a job from the deputy president. That's just a fact. And I wouldn't say that if it wasn't so. I wouldn't say it on national television. I do talk to some of his people. I talk to some of the people from Mheshimiwa Raila. I talk to Martha Karua herself. I talk to everybody. So we must stop this bastardization of truth where you say something and people say, oh, you're a UDA blogger. The deputy president, in his first interview after being declared president-elect, gave an all-encompassing interview, because he is not daft, about the work that is ahead. He even alluded to the fact that he's got several executive orders ready to go so that he can quickly impact the hustlers on the ground. Several executive orders, things that need to be changed quickly, low-hanging fruit on cereals. Like now there's no maize, there's maize shortage in the market. It shouldn't be that way. On jobs, things that can spark jobs, on coffee, etc., etc. The deputy president also has been, the president-elect, has been conducting meetings looking for friendly members to show up his numbers, to boost his agenda, meeting different delegations almost on a daily basis, very consistent with his character, ready to go. So if you see even how you're speaking Bungoma yesterday, it's not now the campaign trail, theatrics and riddles and name calling, etc. He's now speaking to the whole country. Those who voted for him and those who didn't vote for him. Again, like I said, William is not dumb, so he's raring to go. There's urgent work to do. There's an economy to be fixed. There's a hustler fund to be actualized. So the very big challenges, as John Githongo said, the next president will inherit the devil's breakfast because the economy is in the doldrums. It's unfortunate, and this tells you a lot about what's happening in the Supreme Court, that one of the persons with the most problematic affidavits in court is John Githongo, a good governance crusader and former ethics and good governance permanent secretary.
Bizarre.
That is very bizarre. Wild allegations, lots of undisclosed suspects in the allegations, and then donning an e-log jacket which only goes to accredited observers. That's problematic, especially for someone of his stature. But again, because I've been around for a while, people who support Raila and who like Raila, there's a way, like, they do anything for Raila. It's almost like a cult. It's very unfortunate. And so the first option, as you said, is for the Supreme Court to uphold the election.
Yeah. Second one, if they say, of course we said nullify, which you said is a far cry. But if it were to happen?
If they nullified, then William Ruto has already tasted power. His supporters have literally tasted power. one of the transformative things about this election is people always said, oh, Kikuyus don't vote for someone outside of the tribe. Oh, Kikuyus will change at the end. Well, like in Gishugu, they voted for William, 86%, Raila, 15%. So, 14%. So, the turnout now in Central and elsewhere will be higher. This now will be for Kenya Kwanza to clinch hands down. And again, the reason is Azimio, because of the different dynamics that were there, the system, the president is the chairman, so he's the one funding, and it's endless deep pockets, God knows from where. They believed, and I know many of my own relatives that supported Azimio, they believed that by 10 in the morning, Raila will have won. So now they're very disappointed and disillusioned, and they're like, I'm done with this. So turnout will be even worse for Azimio. And Ruto has campaigned longer, he has a better message, he's younger, he's stronger in that way. So a rerun will be advantageous to Kenya Kwanza. The third option is for the court to retally and then declare. That's very problematic.
Tedious. And they don't have the time.
It's
I gotta do that before
it's also problematic from a constitutional standpoint. It's problematic because the letter and spirit of the Constitution gives the role of conducting an election and announcing a winner to the chairman and commission plenary of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. That's a constitutional role. It's not even a role by subsidiary legislation. It's not something we've passed an act that then now you operate. That's a constitutional role. And Chebukati is on his way out. Uhuru is on his way out. So you don't want, the court cannot take it upon itself to act in a manner that now puts the country in total jeopardy because you don't have a proper commission in place. You don't have a proper president in place. So for example, you might not then at that point have a substantive chairman who's been interviewed, vetted by parliament, and appointed by the president right now cannot appoint anybody. Come on, guys. The president right now is in lame duck status. We already had an election. President Uhuru's term is over. He's waiting to hand over. So now who would appoint the new commissioners?
That would be such a...
So that takes you to number one option.
Yeah. Well, we are out of time.
And then continue reforms. And you see, we made a lot of strides in the 5 years from 2017. So if we get this election upheld, then we do even more reforms for the next 5 years. Now will be a world-class standard of democracy as far as our elections are concerned. Because right now we have about the best elections in Africa, which is what Julius Malema was saying in South Africa. I mean, they don't have in South Africa or in America these kinds of open portals and Kim's kits. The failure rate for Kim's kits was, I think, 0.004%. 200 Kim's kits failed out of 46,000 Kim's kits. Come on, Levy. This is a clean election. I don't work for the deputy president.
We want to end it on that note. Benji, we talk after the Supreme Court here.
Absolutely, and thanks for having me.
It's going to be an interesting week.
Yeah. Let me just say this on air. I read your book. Yeah. Guys should read your guys should read your book. And there's a chapter there that is so captivating. May God rest the soul of your sister. The love was just amazing. Yeah, we need to talk about a lot of that stuff off air. But what I like about your book is the courage. We need more of that. So can you imagine if people in positions of power had Levy's kind of openness and sharing, and it would be a better country because we have too much of hiding things. So you share your experiences, your challenges, really even your victories, your victories. And that is very inspiring and really very good. It's called There is No Wasted Experience.
No useless experience.
There's no useless experience, exactly, yeah. It's a really, and I hope you're really selling and put it even on Amazon and whatnot.
It is on Amazon.
It is on Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'll try and market for you a little more like on Facebook and stuff. Yeah. Because we also need young people winning, not by corruption and being in government positions, but just by doing their own small things. So I really want you to sell lots of books and have a lot of money by that avenue. That is really, and inspired, and be inspired to write to rate another one. Yeah. So well done.
Thank you, bro.